What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, we got some new Marvel Spider-Man 2 info, courtesy of Eurogamer. They got to interview some people that work at Insomniac, and we got a couple different things I want to focus on. There's one main thing, and that's the switching of characters. We got kind of confirmation of how that is going to work, and then we have additional stuff, kind of talking about the seriousness of the story, but trying to balance it with the comedy and, making it not feel just like extremely grim and dark. So let's start with what I think, again, is the biggest thing, is the character switching. So for those that called this, and I do believe we called this like last week, what's going to happen is for story missions, they control it. And they flat out say it. When it's a story mission, they are controlling what you're going to do. So whether that means you're only going to play as Peter, only going to play as Miles, or you will switch when they tell you to switch, that is how that's going to work for the story missions. Besides that, now in your free roaming, when you're out into the open world, you can switch back and forth between either of them. And they say like a press of a button, so it's probably going to be literally a singular button. I don't know if it'll be square like we saw in the showcase, but it will just be a button and you'll be able to go back and forth between them. And they say that the side things in this game are designed so that you can play as either of them. You play as Peter, you play as Miles. They talk about their skill trees, that they want them to feel familiar, that you are going from Spider-Man to Spider-Man, but they do have their own unique things, as again we see with their abilities. And because of that, those skill trees are obviously going to be different, and you're going to want to level them up, and you have to level them up, it sounds like, individually. So it's not the craziest thing. It wasn't impossible to predict, but for those that thought, okay, this is how it's going to work, that's exactly how it's going to work. Single player missions, they choose for you. Open world, you can go back and forth using, as they say, the power of the PS5. And then they briefly discuss, the dark choices, the tone of the game. And again, they basically say, look, we're going to be taking it seriously when it comes to the symbiote with Peter. We're not going to be making like jokes out of that, when it attaches itself to him. So that is going to be darker. It is about addiction. You know how Yuri had talked about, they had researched addiction and what that does to a person. They had talked about that's exactly right. That is a theme of the game, and not just what it does to Peter, but how his personality shift is going to affect those closest to him. But you have to remember that you don't want just a game that's like pure darkness, or at least they're not doing that. They are going to still have the comedy, the more lighthearted moments, and honestly, things that they can't say in this interview and that we can probably theorize, right, is that he's not going to have the symbiote the entire time. So if you're worried that, he'll never crack a joke, well, number one, he'll probably do it here and there, but then number two, he's not going to have it, I assume, the entire game. So I think there'll be times where he'll be able to, crack jokes. One final thing that I want to throw out, and I want to make a separate video specifically on this, they tried to ask about MJ missions. They tried to ask about it, and they were actually shut down and said, stay on the topic of last week. You have to ask questions related to what we saw last week. So they tried to ask MJ. They were shut down on it. I personally, I'll give you a little tease, I don't think it's going to return. Obviously, MJ, I think, will return as a character, but I don't think the missions will. But we'll talk about that. I want to do a separate video specifically on that because I feel like that's a little controversial. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.